How's it going? I'm going to be talking to you about the two articles in the video that I viewed in Module 3. The first article that I'm going to be talking to you about is Structured and Unstructured Context in Physical Education, Promoting Activity, Learning, and Motivation. Right off the bat, the article talks about how children in the US received a D- for their overall physical activity behaviors, with nearly 76% failing to get enough physical activity each day. The first key concept that I took away from this article is that being able to implement strategies to enhance motivation in PE is key to developing interest and enjoyment of physical activity for a lifetime. When implementing these strategies, it is important that teachers meet the PE national standards and physical activity guidelines. When it comes to structured physical activity, lessons are planned and thoroughly thought out with objectives in mind. In the article, it says some view structured physical activities as deliberate, planned, and highly organized with continuous guidance from an instructor. One of the most common places for students to take part in structured physical activity is in PE, but it can also take place during classroom brain breaks, organized sports, intramurals, and before and after school programs. The second key concept that I took away from this article is that structured physical activity has routines and is organized, and students get a lot of guidance during their activities. Students receiving encouragement from the teacher during structured physical activity can lead to motivation, enjoyment, and a sense of purpose, as well as higher self-efficacy. When it comes to unstructured physical activity, the teacher does not determine the condition, rules, or the pace of the activity. At school, unstructured physical activity normally takes place during recess, free time, and before and after school. The third key concept that I took away from this article was that unstructured physical activity permits children opportunities to interact, modify, and manipulate their environment to attain positive outcomes and maximize pleasure. And a lot of times enhances youth's value of participation in physical activity. Being able to incorporate in unstructured time during classes has the ability to positively impact students' overall experience of physical activity. Finding the healthy balance of structured and unstructured time is very important for students. One of the models of teaching that is talked about in the article is the play, practice, play model. This model allows students to work on skills throughout the lesson, as well as participate in games throughout the lesson. The last key concept that I took away from this article was that social connections during physical activity is a main source of enjoyment during structured and structured physical activity, and can lead to future enjoyment in physical activity as adults. The next article that I read was Relationship of Enjoyment, Perceived Competence, and Cardiorespiratory Fitness to Physical Activity Levels of Elementary School Children. The study in this article investigated the relationship between habitual physical activity and perceived competence, enjoyment of physical activity, and cardiorespiratory fitness among upper elementary school children. The study uses the FitnessGram Pacer test to test students' cardiorespiratory fitness, the CPAC to measure perceived competence and enjoyment of physical activity, and the PAC-C to measure habitual physical activity. The findings from the study showed that enjoyment, perceived competence, and cardiorespiratory fitness were positively correlated with physical activity. The first key concept that I took from this article was that enjoyment in physical education classes has a major impact on students participating in physical activity and continuing to participate in physical activity as adults. Helping students find enjoyment by creating fun activities, providing a variety of activities, and giving students a voice during their time in PE will hopefully foster a love for physical activity. The second key concept that I took from this article was that students' cardiorespiratory fitness was strongly linked to their physical activity levels. If students were in good shape and tested well on their cardiorespiratory tests, they were more inclined to take part in physical activity. The third key concept that I took away from this article was the self-efficacy theory. Students who believe that they are capable of being physically active are more inclined to do so. Students who don't believe they are capable of being physically active are less likely to engage in physical activity. Being able to help students improve their self-efficacy can lead to more willingness to engage in physical activity. Lastly, the video that I watched titled Motivating Students in PE talks about being able to motivate students in your PE classes by giving them choice. Learning how to give students control in class without the teacher losing control is a very important skill to learn as a teacher. The video talks about key things you can do to make this happen. The first key concept that I took away from this video was to let your students choose the workload during fitness activities. Instead of requiring every student to do the same workload, let your students choose the workload that will help them be the most successful. Using time as the interval during fitness activities is a great way for students to choose their workload. Giving them a set time and allow them to choose the workload that they want to do. The second key concept that I took away from the video was allowing students to choose their progression during the activity. Instead of moving on during an activity, when a student is not ready to move on, allow the students to move on to the next part of the lesson when they feel comfortable and confident to do so. A lot of times I'll do this with my students, like let's say during a basketball unit. If we're working on dribbling, a lot of times I'll say, okay, we're gonna walk around the gym while we dribble. And then after a minute or two, I'll say, if you feel comfortable to move on to jogging and dribbling, then you can do so. But if you feel like you still need to practice your dribbling while walking, then you can continue to do that. And I give them the option to move on when they feel comfortable and when they feel like they'll be the most successful. The third key concept that I took away from the video was having different levels of gameplay for students. Provide the students the opportunity to play at that highly competitive game, the recreation game, and the I'm still learning how to play this style game. This will allow students to feel more confident about their abilities compared to the other players that they are going against. After reading the two articles and watching this video, the two strategies that I see myself implementing are providing my students with both structured and unstructured time during class time, and letting students choose their workload and progression during activities. By doing these things, I will hopefully be setting my students up for more success and allow them to more easily find enjoyment during physical activity. Thanks for listening.